A single mom cry for help accidentally lands in the inbox of a powerful CEO and sets off a chain of events no one could have predicted. She was silenced and forgotten after doing the right thing, suddenly finds herself face-to-face with the very man who holds her past and future in his hands. What he says next will leave her stunned and change her life forever. This is not just a story of survival. It's a journey of redemption, courage, and a second chance that arrives when hope is almost gone. Maria sent out resumes with enthusiasm, carefully written cover letters, polished portfolios, and LinkedIn connections. She applied everywhere: banks, consulting firms, logistics companies, startups. She wore her best dress to interviews that never called back. Weeks turned into months. Her inbox was flooded with polite rejections, or worse, silence. She watched classmates land entry-level roles in other cities, moving on, moving up. Maria remained behind, in her tiny apartment, watching bills grow like weeds. Her mother's savings could only stretch so far. Maria's part-time tutoring jobs dried up. Her once bright confidence began to dull. By winter, desperation crept in. She stared at a job listing pinned outside a hotel lobby bulletin board. Crescent Bay Hotel, now hiring janitorial staff. Full-time. Immediate start. It wasn't where she imagined herself. Not even close. But pride didn't pay the electric bill. Maria showed up the next day and filled out the application in silence. She scrubbed bathrooms, polished lobby floors, restocked toilet paper, and emptied trash bins left by wealthy guests who would never see her. Each day began with quiet resolve and ended with aching feet. Her business degree, framed on her wall at home, became more of a memory than a milestone. Yet she kept going. She smiled at guests, nodded respectfully at managers, and never spoke of her past, not the honors degree, not the dream she shelved. She kept her hair tied back, her head down, and her mouth shut. Hope, however fragile, still flickered inside her. Some nights, she'd walk past the conference room and imagine herself inside, heels clicking, a tablet in hand, discussing strategy. But then someone would call her on the radio to clean up a spill in the stairwell, and the fantasy would vanish. Then, one rainy Tuesday, everything shifted. Maria hadn't been feeling well for weeks. Fatigue, nausea, and a strange tension in her body. She assumed it was stress, the long hours, the lack of rest. But when she missed her period and the symptoms persisted, she stopped at the pharmacy after a shift. She didn't even remove her work gloves as she stood in line, her heart pounding against her ribs. At home, under the dim yellow light of her bathroom, the two pink lines appeared. Bold, unmistakable, pregnant. Maria sank to the floor, the test clutched in her hands. Her mind raced through numbers, rent, grocery lists, unpaid bills, and the single name she hadn't dared to call yet: Eric. He was the one she trusted. The man who made her laugh after hard days. Who told her she was too smart to be cleaning floors. Who swore he'd stick around. With trembling fingers, she called him. He didn't answer. She texted him. No reply. The next morning, his number was disconnected. His social media profiles were gone, as if he had never existed. Maria sat at the bus stop in the cold, holding her stomach with one hand and gripping her work badge with the other. She had dreamed of balanced sheets, office desks, and morning meetings. Now she faced mop buckets, growing debt, and a baby on the way alone. But even as her eyes stung with tears, she straightened her back and stood when the bus arrived. Because though her dream had been deferred, Maria was not done yet. Maria's mornings began before sunrise. Her back ached. Her ankles swelled. The once loose janitor uniform now clung tightly across her growing belly. She wrapped a scarf around her neck to block the chill and waddled slowly into the Crescent Bay Hotel through the service entrance, always with her head held high, even when her body screamed otherwise. She was 6 months pregnant, alone. Her co-workers offered the occasional smile, but no one asked questions. No one knew about the degree hidden in her closet or the man who vanished like vapor after hearing the word baby. To them, she was just the quiet cleaning girl who never missed a shift. But behind that quiet, Maria was fighting to survive. Every step felt heavier. Her legs pulsed with soreness from mopping long corridors and lugging cleaning supplies. Breaks were few. She refused to sit down for too long, afraid the pain would settle in too deep. She worked through dizzy spells, through swollen fingers, through hunger pangs. She refused to be seen as weak. Not now. Then one Thursday afternoon, while cleaning the executive floor, a place with polished wood, soft carpet, and doors that rarely open for someone like her, Maria's life took another turn. She had just finished wiping down a glass wall outside one of the main boardrooms when she heard voices coming from the adjacent maintenance office. The door was slightly ajar. She leaned back quietly. "Look, we're behind schedule," a deep male voice grunted. "Just sign it off. No one checks underground conduit wiring anyway." "It was the head of facilities, Mr. Granger." Another voice replied, a contractor she'd seen only twice. "I told you, these materials weren't rated for commercial use. If someone files a complaint." Granger cut him off. "No one will. Just finish the job. We pocket the difference and walk." "Got it." Maria froze. Her heart thudded in her chest as she stepped away quickly, pretending to dust a plant in the hallway. Her thoughts raced. Cheap wiring? Skipping inspections? In a hotel full of guests? She returned to the janitorial closet, pulled out her phone, and snapped photos of the materials staging area in the utility wing. Labels, serial numbers, boxes mismatched with the official inventory list she saw weekly when signing for cleaning supplies. She quietly gathered her observations over the next few days. Wiring specs, the name of the contractor, safety logs that hadn't been updated in weeks. By Monday, she had compiled a full report. Detailed, evidence-backed, respectful in tone, but urgent in message. She didn't know who to trust, so she placed it in an envelope and slid it under the door of the assistant general manager's office, the only manager who once treated her like a human being. For the first time in months, she felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Agency. But that flicker was extinguished 2 days later. Maria was called into the back office. Granger sat there, arms folded, with the cold, clipped expression of a man who'd lost control and was trying to regain it. "You've been accessing restricted areas," he said flatly, "and tampering with company records. That's a serious violation." Maria's breath caught. "I was only trying to." "You were digging through things that don't concern you. You're a janitor, not an auditor." He pushed a termination letter across the desk. "We can do this quietly, or we can file a report for unauthorized surveillance. Your choice." Maria didn't sign the paper. She simply stood, pregnant, silent, trembling, but not from fear, from the bitter knowledge that doing the right thing had cost her everything again. She walked to her locker. The stares from staff followed her, but no one said a word. She gathered her few belongings, a stained lunchbox, a photo of her sonogram, and her cleaning badge. She left the envelope copy of her report hidden beneath her spare shoes. As she stepped outside, the late afternoon sun bathed the pavement in gold. People walked past her in business suits and heels, coffee cups in hand, chatting about contracts and deadlines. No one noticed the woman walking away from the hotel she had once cleaned with pride, jobless, pregnant, and betrayed. But Maria did not cry, because even as the doors closed behind her, she knew the truth. She saw something. She spoke up, and that mattered. The air was still the night Maria gave birth. No hospital gown, no delivery suite, just the quiet hum of a space heater in her one-bedroom apartment and the distant honk of a siren somewhere outside. She sat alone on a borrowed mattress, clutching the thin bedsheet between contractions. A kind neighbor, an older woman from 2 doors down, stayed with her, holding her hand and whispering prayers under her breath. When the baby arrived, wrapped in a second-hand towel, Maria didn't cry. She just held the newborn girl close to her chest and whispered, "It's just you and me now." Her name was Elena. There was no time to recover. Bills didn't wait. Maria found herself back on her feet just days later, taking whatever cleaning job she could. Homes, diners, night offices. The kind of work that paid cash under the table and didn't ask questions. Most nights, she wore her baby strapped to her chest, humming lullabies through a dust mask while scrubbing floors by flashlight. She never stopped moving. Sleep became a luxury. Meals were whatever she could afford. Rice, noodles, canned vegetables. The baby's needs always came first. Formula cost more than anything else in the grocery bag. Prices rose. Her supply dropped. And rent, always on the edge, loomed like a ticking clock above her every month. She sold her old textbooks, then her microwave, then the stroller someone had gifted her. Still, it wasn't enough. Maria kept a small notebook by her bed, the miracle book, she called it. In it, she tracked every dollar. $9.48 for wipes, $21.37 for diapers, $36.90 for formula, $12.12 for bus fares. She counted and recounted, but no matter how she stretched it, the math always betrayed her. One night, she returned home from cleaning an office building at 2 a.m., her shoes soaked from walking through a storm. Elena was down to her last bottle. The power had been shut off that afternoon. Maria sat on the edge of her bed, hair dripping, body trembling. She pulled out her phone with numb fingers and opened her messages. She scrolled to Nina, a former co-worker from the hotel. They hadn't spoken in months, but Maria remembered her as kind, the only one who ever smiled during shift changes. Her thumbs hovered over the keyboard, hesitating. Then she typed, "Hey Nina, I'm so sorry to ask, but do you have $30 I could borrow? I don't have formula for my baby tonight. I'll pay you back next week." She hit send. Seconds later, her heart sank. She had sent it to Donovan Hartwell, the CEO, the very last contact in her message list. She had forgotten to delete the number after once cleaning his office and helping him recover a misplaced tablet. His business card had been in her phone ever since. Maria stared at the screen in horror. Her chest tightened. Her breath caught. She tried to unsend it, but it was too late. She imagined it now. Him laughing at the message, forwarding it to someone, calling security, or worse, reporting her for harassment. Why would a man like that, a man with a suit worth more than her rent, care about a janitor who got fired and forgotten? She dropped the phone, covering her face with her hands. The walls of the apartment seemed to close in tighter. Elena stirred in her makeshift crib, and Maria rushed over, cradling her gently, whispering, "Shoo, Mama's got you. We're okay." But inside, she was unraveling. Her thoughts spiraled. Maybe she'd go back to the diner she cleaned on Tuesdays and ask for an advance. Maybe she'd sell the baby carrier. Maybe she'd try to pawn her mother's broken necklace. Maybe... The phone buzzed. She didn't dare look. She turned it over and stared at the blank ceiling above her bed, praying that somehow, this wouldn't be the moment everything finally fell apart. And as the room filled with silence again, Maria whispered to herself, "Please, let this be a mistake I survive." It was just past 8 a.m. when her phone rang. She had barely slept, if at all. Her body ached from the night shift. Elena lay curled on her chest, warm and peaceful, completely unaware that her mother's world was trembling. Maria picked up the phone, squinting at the screen. The number was unknown. She hesitated. A voice answered when she swiped. Polished, direct. A woman's voice. "Hello. This is Claudia Evans, executive assistant to Mr. Donovan Hartwell. He would like to see you at the Crescent Bay Hotel today." Maria sat up slowly, her throat tightening. I think you may have the wrong person," she said, her voice dry. "Is this Maria Reyes?" Maria swallowed. "Yes." "No mistake, then. Mr. Hartwell received a message from this number last night. He would like to meet. Please arrive at the side entrance. We'll be expecting you at 11 a.m. The line went dead before Maria could respond. She stared at the phone, as if it might explain itself. Her chest was a storm of dread. Not just nerves, but full-on panic. Her fingers curled tightly around the blanket as her mind raced. He knows. He'd read the message. He knew she was struggling. He knew she was desperate. What if this was a trap? What if he planned to shame her? Or worse, what if he wanted to press charges for harassment? Maria paced the apartment, her heartbeat matching the ticking of the second-hand wall clock. She looked down at her baby girl, awake now, blinking up at her with wide, trusting eyes. She considered not going. She considered ignoring the whole thing, blocking the number, pretending none of it happened. But something inside her, The same thing that made her report a safety violation when no one was watching, the same thing that got her out of bed every morning with aching feet and empty cupboards, told her to face it. Face him. By 10:30, Maria was dressed in the best clothes she had, a clean blouse, slightly faded, and dark jeans. She wrapped Elena in her only baby carrier, kissed her tiny forehead, and stepped out into the city. The walk to the hotel was long and quiet. Every step closer made her stomach twist tighter. She hadn't been near Crescent Bay since the day she was fired. The marble floors, the glass facade, the polished chrome logo etched into the main entrance. She approached the side door as instructed. A uniformed staff member greeted her without a word, checking her name on a clipboard before silently escorting her inside. Through private elevators and quiet hallways, higher and higher, until they reached the top floor. The executive wing. Maria had only cleaned this hallway once, years ago. She remembered the soft carpeting under her shoes, the sound of her cleaning cart wheels muffled. Now, there were no carts. Just her, the baby on her chest, and her rapidly tightening breath. The assistant, Claudia, stood at the door. Poised, elegant, expression unreadable. "You can go in," she said gently. "He's expecting you." Maria nodded faintly. Her hand shook as she reached for the door handle. The brass was cool to the touch. She took one last breath, one last glance down at Elena, sleeping peacefully, and opened the door. The office was nothing like she remembered. It wasn't intimidating or cold. The lighting was warm, filtered through tall windows. Soft classical music played faintly in the background. A coffee cup steamed on the side table. And there, at the far end of the room, stood Donovan Hartwell. He wasn't behind his desk. He wasn't towering in authority. He stood beside the window, his hands in his pockets, wearing a gray sweater and slacks. His hair was slightly tousled, as if he had rushed there just minutes before. When he turned to face her, Maria froze. She didn't know what to expect. Anger? Condescension? Pity? Instead, he looked at her the way someone looks when they've found something they weren't sure they'd ever see again. "Maria Reyes," he said softly. "I'm really glad you came." Maria couldn't move, couldn't speak. All she could do was stand there, a baby on her chest, her body trembling, her past clinging to her like wet clothes, staring into the eyes of the man whose name she had once only whispered while cleaning glass doors and trash bins. She was face to face with the CEO, and she had no idea what was coming next. Maria stood just inside the doorway of the CEO's office, her baby nestled in the carrier on her chest, her nerves fraying with every breath. Her hands trembled slightly, but she stood straight, refusing to let fear fold her in half. She expected judgment. She expected formality. She expected cold, corporate words. What she didn't expect was warmth. "Maria Reyes," Donovan Hartwell repeated, stepping forward with a soft, open expression. "I'm really glad you came." He didn't motion toward a chair. He didn't speak down to her. He simply extended his hand, gently and without expectation. Maria shook it with hesitance, her eyes searching for a trick in the tone, a hidden condescension, but there was none. "You can sit," he said kindly, gesturing toward a leather chair facing his desk. "If you're comfortable." Maria lowered herself slowly, carefully balancing Elena, who squirmed quietly in her sleep. The silence in the room felt too vast. Her heart thundered in her ears. Donovan settled across from her, not behind the desk, but close, like they were equals. He clasped his hands, rested his elbows on his knees, and looked at her with a level gaze. "You sent a message last night," he said softly, "and it landed in my inbox by accident." Maria looked down, ashamed. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Hartwell. I meant to send it to a friend. I didn't mean to cross any lines." He raised a hand gently, stopping her. "You don't need to apologize." Actually, he reached toward his desk and picked up a folder, thick with paperwork and documents clipped neatly together. That message led us to realize something important, something we've been trying to resolve for nearly a year. Maria furrowed her brow. Donovan opened the folder, then turned it to face her. The cover page bore her handwriting, her signature. "I believe this is yours." Her breath caught. It was the report. The one she had typed, printed, and quietly slipped under the assistant GM's door almost a year ago. The fraud report that exposed the contractor using substandard wiring. The report that got her fired. She blinked, unable to speak. We found it during a recent compliance audit, Donovan continued. Tucked into the back of a locker. No one knew where it came from at first, but the handwriting, the attached photos, the level of detail, it was clear this wasn't written by accident. He paused, then added, it was written by someone who cared. Maria's throat tightened. We followed the trail. Verified every claim. And sure enough, that contractor had lied on multiple inspection reports. Your documentation helped us intervene before the new building wing opened. You likely prevented a fire, injury, lawsuits. Worse. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Donovan leaned back slowly, his expression never losing its sincerity. We terminated the head of facilities. The contractor's license was revoked, and we began trying to track down the author of the report. Your name was buried in the internal system. Your access had been wiped when you were let go. Maria could barely breathe. We've been looking for you for months, Maria. The weight of those words knocked the air from her lungs. No one had looked for her in so long. Not when she was jobless. Not when she was pregnant. Not when she needed help. But now, in the most unexpected way, someone had noticed. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Donovan smiled gently. You don't have to say anything. You already said enough by doing what no one else did. A moment of silence passed. Then his expression softened even further. I also read the message you sent, he said. The one about the baby formula. Maria looked down again, flushed with shame. I wasn't trying to. I know, he interrupted, his tone reassuring. But I'm glad you sent it, because that message told me something else. He exhaled slowly, eyes distant now. My mother raised me alone, he said. She worked nights in a laundry plant and took side jobs on weekends. I remember once, I was maybe 6, I asked her why we didn't have a fridge that made ice. She smiled and told me, we'll have one soon, baby. But I didn't know until I was older that she hadn't eaten dinner that night, so I could have milk. His voice caught just slightly, but he continued. I watch her carry the world on her back. She never asked for help, but she should have had it. She deserved it. That's why I understand exactly what you're going through, Maria. Not just as a CEO, but as someone who's lived on the other side of this glass. Maria's eyes welled. She lowered her gaze, blinking fast. Donovan stood and walked to a drawer in his desk. He pulled out a sealed envelope and returned to his chair, holding it out for her. Maria hesitated before accepting it. She opened it slowly. Inside was a check. Clean, elegant, unmistakable. $10,000. Her hand flew to her mouth. It's not charity, he said gently. It's overdue recognition. For what you did and for what you've endured. Maria shook her head in disbelief. I don't deserve this. Donovan met her eyes. You do, and more. He set another paper beside the check, an official HR document. This is your reinstatement letter. You'll return as a corporate associate, working under our compliance and safety division. We'll begin your training after your paid maternity leave, which you're entitled to, by the way. Fully covered. Maria stared at the words as if they were written in another language. Your salary has been adjusted, he added. Benefits included. And when you're ready, I'd like to personally mentor you for a leadership development track. Her hands trembled as she pressed the envelope to her chest. I don't know how to thank you, she said, barely above a whisper. You already did, Donovan said. When you spoke up, when no one else would. Elena stirred in her carrier, whimpering softly. Maria instinctively soothed her, whispering gentle shushes. Her hand cupped the back of her daughter's head as she rocked slightly, tears slipping down her cheeks. Not from pain, not from shame, but from something she hadn't felt in so long. Relief. Hope. Donovan didn't speak. He simply stood, walked to the door, and opened it for her. Maria stood slowly, holding her baby close, and walked out, head high, tears flowing freely. The hallway outside shimmered with morning light. Staff members glanced over, curious, but no one said a word. Maria didn't need applause. She didn't need a spotlight. She had been seen, and this time, She was walking out not as a janitor, not as a mistake, not as a ghost in the system, but as a woman who mattered. She stepped into the elevator and held Elena tighter, whispering into her baby's ear. "We're going to be okay now. I promise." Weeks had passed since Maria Reyes walked out of the CEO's office with tears of relief and an envelope that changed her life. The city's rhythm hadn't slowed, but for the first time in years, Maria wasn't just keeping up. She was moving forward. On a bright Monday morning, she returned to Crescent Bay Hotel. Not through the side entrance or service hallway, but through the main doors, greeted by polished marble floors and staff who now knew her name. A new badge hung around her neck. Maria Reyes, corporate trainee, compliance division. She wore a fitted blazer over a modest blouse, her hair neatly pulled back. Elena, now a few months older, was thriving at a small daycare a block away. Her cheeks full, her smile quick, her tiny fingers always reaching for the light. Maria stepped into the compliance and safety office, where she would begin her training. But what caught her off guard wasn't the neatly arranged desks or the rows of binders. It was the frame on the wall. Behind glass, hung with care, was her original report, the one she wrote in exhaustion and fear. Below it, a small brass plaque read, "Integrity is not a role, is a choice." In honor of Maria Reyes. Maria stood frozen for a moment, her eyes misting, her heart full. What once cost her everything was now a symbol of everything she had become. Later that afternoon, the hotel's quarterly town hall meeting filled the executive conference room. Staff from every level gathered: servers, engineers, receptionists, managers. It was the first time Maria had attended one as anything other than support. Donovan Hartwell took the stage, dressed simply, speaking with ease. Near the end of his remarks, he paused, then turned to the crowd. "There's someone I'd like to recognize today," he said. "Someone who reminds us what courage looks like when no one is watching." Heads turned. Murmurs rippled across the room. Donovan continued. "She worked here quietly for years, unnoticed by many. But when it mattered most, she spoke up, and her voice protected this company and its people. That kind of integrity doesn't come with titles. It comes from character." He gestured toward the front row. "Maria Reyes, will you please stand?" Applause erupted. Some stood. Some smiled with surprise, others with admiration. Maria rose slowly, cheeks flushed, heart pounding. Not from nerves, but from something new: pride. As the claps echoed around her, Maria glanced at the back of the room, where her daughter's stroller sat with a caretaker. Elena giggled, waving a tiny hand toward her mother. Maria waved back, no longer invisible, no longer forgotten. She had come full circle, and this time, she wasn't cleaning the floors. She was walking the path she'd always been meant to take. If this story touched your heart, like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more powerful, soul-touching stories that restore faith in humanity. If this story touched your heart,